Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom and welcome back to today's Daf, which is Pesachim Yud Daled. We're at the Mishnah, 5 lines from the top of the Yomid. Rabbi Chanina, Sgan HaKahanim Omer. Rabbi Chanina, who was a Sgan for the Kahanim Gedolim, a vice Kohen Gadol, second in command, he would say like this: Mi Meim Shel Kohanim. Throughout the entire history of the Kohanim in the Beis Hamikdash, Lo Nimnu, they never hesitated, Mi Lisraif Es HaBasar, Shenitma B'Vlad HaTumah, to go ahead and burn the basar, the meat of the kachim, that became tamei by contacting a Vlad HaTumah. So we have the mace, who is Avi Avois, on top of the pyramid. He's the grandfather of all Tumah. Then whatever comes into contact with the mace is considered an Av HaTumah, a father Tumah. Whatever comes into contact with that is called a Rishon. That's generated by the Av, it's his offspring. It's called a Vlad HaTumah. And then further down the line we have the Vlad, the grandson, which is a Sheni L'Tumah. And whatever that comes into contact with, it's called a Shlishi L'Tumah, which is actually the dead end. When it comes to Truma, it only goes up until Shlishi. When it comes to Kachim, it actually goes a step further, up until Revi. So what happened was, they had Basar, which was Tameh, because it came into contact with a Vlad HaTumah. Vlad is a Rishon, so now the Basar is a Shem. Now they wouldn't hesitate to burn that meat, Im HaBasar Shenitim B'Avatuma, together with another piece of meat that was actually more Tameh. It had a higher level of Tumah. Why? Because it became Tameh by coming into contact with an Av HaTumah, which made that piece of meat a Rishon L'Tumah. So here we have one Basar, which is a Sheni L'Tumah, a lower level of Tumah, and they would burn it together with a piece of meat which had a higher level of Tumah, because it had come into contact with an Av and made it a Rishon. So you have a Sheni together with a Rishon. Now, the concept here is that although generally we're meant to secure our Truma, our Kachim, we learn this from our Pasuk, Mishmeres Trumoisai, to make sure that it doesn't become Tameh, but that only applies to something which is tar and edible. But something which is already Tameh, although it's perhaps a low-level Tumah, but now it's slated for streifa, for burning, it's no longer edible, halachically. So now there's no concern with even allowing it to acquire a higher level of Tumah. That's what Chanina tells us. They wouldn't hesitate to burn basar, which had a low level Tumah, together with basar that was more Tameh, even though even though you're adding another level of Tumah to the pre-existing Tumah. Now the obvious question here is, how are you adding anything? By taking a basar with a Sheni L'Tumah and putting it together with a Rishon L'Tumah. What happens now? If the Sheni touches a Rishon, it's still a Sheni. When something touches the Rishon, it becomes a Sheni. So you didn't really change the status of the original piece of meat. So the more asks kasha, the more concludes that evidently the first piece of meat wasn't a Sheni. It actually touched a Vlad HaTumah. So it touched the Sheni, and it itself became a Shlishi L'Tumah. So now we have a very low level Tumah here, a Shlishi L'Tumah, and they still wouldn't hesitate to burn it together with another piece of meat which had attained a very high status of Tumah, which was a Rishon L'Tumah. What happens when the Shlishi touches the Rishon? It becomes a Sheni. No problem, you can turn a Shlishi into a Sheni. And again, the point is, since it's already Tameh, there's no concern with even upgrading the level of Tumah. That was Rabbi Chanina's halacha. Rabbi Kiva added to that, and he said, throughout the history in the Beis Hamikdash, they wouldn't hesitate to burn oil that became puzzle by coming into contact with a Tvul Yom. Tvul Yom is a Sheni L'Tumah. So he's a fellow that was Tameh, went to the mikveh, and is still awaiting the head of Shemesh, nightfall. So up until then he's a Sheni L'Tumah. He touched the oil of Truma, transformed it into a Shlishi L'Tumah, and they wouldn't hesitate to take that oil, which was a Shlishi, a very low level Tumah, and put it into a ner. They would light that oil b'ner shenitma b'tmeimes, in a container, in a lamp, which was much more tamei. It was Nitma b'tmei meis, it had come into contact with a tmei meis. Tmei meis is a fellow who touched the meis. So he's an avatuma. Now the nair which touched the tmei meis is a rishon l'tuma. You can place the oil, which is shlish l'tuma, a very low level of tuma, and put it into the nair, which is a rishon l'tuma, aval bishon moisifim tuma tumasa, even though you're adding another level of tuma to the oil. And again, there's no concern because the oil is already unfit for use. It's tamei. So you can go ahead and have it come into contact with a higher level of tuma, even though it's going to transform it and upgrade its tuma. Oh, this is why the Mishnah belongs in Pesachim. Because from their words we learned like this, that when it comes to doing bir chametz, we also don't have to be concerned. One can go ahead and take truma, which is tar, and now that it's already the time for streifa, it's no longer edible, he could burn it together with truma tmeya on Erev Pesach. So although this will result in being metame, the truma which is still tar, that's okay, because it's slated for streifa, it's no longer edible, and there's no concern with being metame this truma. There's no connection. You can't conclude to that extent. The Gemara will elaborate on the background of the machlekes. Rabbi Yossi continued and he said, although we do find some machlekes in Rabbi Lezer and Yeshua pertaining to this type of discussion, but they agree that when it comes to truma tahira with truma tmeya, you're not meant to mix them up and be matame truma tahira. They both agree, shesurfens or la'atzma, each one is meant to be burnt separately. Aman echlaku. In what case is there a machlekes between them? Ala tluya v'atzmei. When you have truma which is in limbo, you don't know if it's tamei or tar, it's a suffix, so you no longer can eat it in any case. And then you have another truma which is tamei, so ala tluya v'atzmei. Shablezo omer tisaref zulatzma. Each one needs to be burnt separately. Don't be matamei the tluya. It's a suffix. Don't go make it vade tamei. You have no right to do that. Rabbi Shua Meshten Kachas, you can burn them both together. There's no concern with matame tluya, but that's only concerning its tluya. But of course, when we have a truma which is outright tar, all agree you can't go ahead and burn it together with the truma tmei and make it tamei. So you disagree. This is Rav Meir's conclusion. So again, we have Rabbi Chanina tells us you can take the basar of kachim, which is just slightly tamei, burn it together with the meat of the kachim, which attain a higher level of tumah. Even though it's going to result in upgrading the tumah of the first piece of meat, that's okay. Says the Gemara Mechti, let's analyze. So Rabbi says you can take the basar shenitma bevlad tumah. It came into contact with a vlad, a rishon, which made the basar into a sheni, and take that and have it come into contact with another piece of meat that came into contact with a avatum. So that second piece of meat is what? When you touch an av, you become a rishon. So you're taking the first piece of meat with the sheni and have it touch the other piece of meat, which is a rishon. No damage occurred. You haven't really changed anything, because it was a sheni, and now when it touches the rishon, it's still going to be a sheni. You're not going to change it. You're not going to upgrade the status. Michti, let's take a look. What status does the basar have? The basar that touched the vlad tumah. It's a sheni. Now, now when we burn that sheni piece of meat together with another piece of meat that contacted an avatum, so that piece of meat touched an avatumah and in turn became a rishon. So now if we take the initial basar, which was a sheni, and have it come into contact with second basar, which is a rishon, what happens to something that touches a rishon? Mayavi, sheni. It turns into a sheni, right? You touch a rishon, you become a sheni. So there was no change that was affected here. Sheni v'sheni. This initial piece of meat here, that was a sheni, it was a sheni, and it's currently a sheni. Sheni v'sheni. Why? Because originally it touched a rishon, which turned it into a sheni. Now you burnt it together with another piece of meat, which was a rishon l'tumah, because it touched an avatumah, so it's a rishon. So this first piece of meat that touched the second piece of meat, which is a rishon, is still going to be a sheni. Because when you touch a rishon, you are a sheni. Sheni v'shenihu. It was and it still is a sheni. So what do you mean you're adding tumah? My moisif le tumah al tumah se'ika. In which way are you adding another layer of tumah? What does Chanina mean? Amar Yehuda, hacha bevlad vlad askina. Indeed, we're not speaking that the first piece of meat merely was a sheni. It didn't merely touch a vlad. A vlad is a rishon, which makes it a sheni. Rather, it was a vlad that it came into contact with. So vlad is a rishon, vlad means a sheni. So what happens to something that touches a sheni? Dahaveli shlishi. So it's a shlishi l'tumah, a very low level of tumah. Now is a chiddush. We don't hesitate to take that shlishi l'tumah and burn it together with another piece of meat, where that second piece of meat is a rishon l'tumah because it touched an avatumah. When you touch an av, you become a rishon. So you have a shlishi l'tumah coming into contact with a rishon. What happens now? When something touches a rishon, it becomes a sheni. So you're upgrading, you're elevating the status. You're adding another layer of tumah to that first piece of meat. You're turning something which was a shlishi into a sheni. Because savar, Chanina holds, shlishi mutal says a sheni. You can take a shlishi and turn it into a sheni. So that was Rav Chanina's chiddush. Since it's already tummy, although it's just a light form of tumah, a shlishi, there's no hesitation. You can take it, burn it together with another piece of meat, which is a rishon, which will in turn transform the first piece of meat into a sheni. It's going to elevate its status, upgrade, bump it up a level. You can do that, it's okay. Says the Gemara, even if the first piece of meat comes into contact with the second piece of meat, which is much more tummy, but it won't affect it, it won't contract any tumah from it. Why? Because we know that food cannot be matami food. The Sanya, perhaps food can be matami food. Talmud Loim, the pasuk says, no. V'chiyitin mayim al zera. Actually, v'chiyutan mayim al zera. So if water contacts the seeds, v'nafel, blossom, olive, and a veil falls on it, tamehu. It is tameh. Tamehu. The pasuk is teaching us who tameh. This food becomes tameh, but it can't transport, it can't export. It's tumah to another food. It can't go ahead and transfer the tumah to something which is like itself, meaning to another piece of food. So, what exactly are we speaking about? The Chanina says, well, you can take the basar, which was only a shlishi, have it come into contact with a rishon, although you're upgrading the tumah by transforming it from a shlishi to a sheni. Well, there's no tumah going to take effect here in any case because food cannot be matami food. It says, okay, it works well according to Abaye. The Amar, loishanu, this halacha that food cannot be matami food, that's only el b'chulin. When it comes to non-truma, non-kodesh items, aval betruma v'kachim, when it comes to truma v'kachim, oisek yoytzivot, then even food can be matami other food. We learned this from another pasuk. Okay, so according to him, it works. Speaking about kachim here, so kachim can be matami kachim. L'Rav Adar bar Ava mishmed Rava nami, and according to Rav Adar bar Ava, the name of Rava as well, the Amar loishanu al chulin truma. This restriction that food can't be matami food only applies to chulin truma. Aval v'kachim oisek yoytzivot, but when it comes to kachim, they can. Food can transfer to another food, shaper. So according to him as well, the Mishnah works out. One piece of meat will transport its tumah to the other piece of meat. El Ravina, but according to Ravina Mishmei de Rava, the Amar Mikra Mali de Bakasa, we have a full pasuk, a clear pasuk, which tells us Loishna Chulin, Loishna Truma, Loishna Kachim. It's irrelevant whether Chulin, Truma, Kachim, Einoi Oisek Hayotzeboy. One oichal cannot be matami another. Michael and Meimar. That's how we meant to understand the Mishnah. You're not bumping up anything. You're not upgrading any tumah. When one basa touches the other, there's no change taking effect. Hachab Ma'eskinan, we're speaking about the Ika Mashkim Bada Basar. Rabbi Chanina tells us that we may take a piece of meat, which is a shlishi, and have it come into contact with another piece of meat, which touched an avatuma, which in turn made that into a rishon l'tumah. We're speaking that on that more stringent, more tamei piece of meat, there was actually mashkin. The mashkin at the basar, there's some liquid together with that basar. So floating on that basar is some liquid. And that liquid also became tummy when the basar touched the avatuma. So it's not only the basar that's a rishon l'tuma as a result, but also the mashkin on it. Now, when this second piece of meat, this shlish l'tuma, will come into contact with that arrangement, with the basar and the mashkin, okay, forget about the basar, because the basar can't transfer any tuma to the other basar, but the mashkin, which is present on that basar, mashkin can be mitama oichel. To come mitame machmas mashkin. So the shlish l'tuma basar will get its tuma, its higher form of tuma, not from the meat, but from the mashkin sitting on the meat. And that will transform the shlishi into a sheni. We'll take the more lenient piece of meat, the shlishi, and bump it up a level to a sheni l'tuma. And that's the pshat in Reb Chanina. If that's the case, hayim ha'basar shnitten b'avatuma, the wording of the Mishnah, which indicates that the basar, the shlishi basar, is going to be burnt together with the basar shnitten b'avatuma, together with the more tummy basar that became tummy from avatuma. Why does the Mishnah refer to the basar only as basar? The Mishnah should have specified ima basar umashkin u'boile, that you burn it together with the basar with the mashkin on it. If that's the punchline here, that it's the mashkin that's imparting the tumah. Evidently, that's not the solution. Ella, rather, nihide ein oichel matame oichel medaraisa. Although you're right, one oichel cannot be matame another oichel min haTorah. Midrabanan miu matame. However, midrabanan, even an oichel can matame oichel. And that's the chiddush of our Mishnah. We're speaking about taking a piece of meat, which is a shlish l'tumah. Rabbi Chanina says we can go ahead and burn it together with another piece of meat, which is a rishon l'tumah. Although what's going to happen now is that the shlish l'tumah will become upgraded, bumped up a level, because when it comes into contact with that rishon l'tumah, it accepts a higher level of tumah from it. So although we're speaking about only tumah d'Rabbanan, okay. So it's in the context of tumah d'Rabbanan, we allow the shlish l'tumah basar to go up a level and attain a higher level of tumah midrabanan. And the reason again is because initially that piece of meat was already tummy. So although it was a lower level tumah, there's no concern with adding another level of tumah to it, upgrading it from a shlishi to a sheni. And of course again we're speaking about a tumah midrabanan. That's Reb Chanina's chiddush. Hoyser Rabbi Akiva added an additional chiddush. They wouldn't hesitate to light the oil. The truma oil, which was a shlish l'tumah, in this ner, which was much more tummy. And it's pretty clear that it's coming to add something to Reb Chanina. They want to try to analyze what exactly is Rabbi Akiva adding to Reb Chanina. Why is it a greater chiddush? Mechti, let's analyze. Shemen shenifsal b'tful yoyim. Mayavi. What is the status of oil that became possible through contact with a tvul yoyim? Again, a tvul yoyim is this fellow who's a sheni l'tumah. If he touches the truma becomes possible, a shlishi. So what is it? Mayavi, shlishi. Okay, it's the lowest level of tumah. Shlishi l'tumah. V'chimadlik le'biner. Shenitma b'tmeimes. Now, Rav Akiva describes them as not being careful and putting the shlishi truma, the shemen truma, which is a shlishi, into the ner. What type of ner? That was nitma b'tmeimes. What is a tmeimes? What status does he have? What level of tumah? He's a avatuma. Right? He touched the mace, so he's an avatuma. This ner, which came into contact with an avatuma, is what? Is a rishon l'tumah. Right? If you touch an avatuma, you're rishon. Now, Rav Akiva says, well, they said take the shemen truma, which was a shlishi, because they touched a tful yom, who's a sheni. So the shemen is now a shlishi. And you put it into a ner which is a rishon. So by doing so, you're transforming the shemen from a shlishi, you're upgrading it to a sheni. Because when it touched the ner, which was a rishon, it became a sheni. When you madlik that oil in a ner shenitm memes, that became tamei by touching a tmei mace, which turned the ner into a rishon. Now in turn, when you put the oil into that ner, Mayavi, what happens to it? Sheni. It becomes a sheni, because when it touched the rishon, it becomes a sheni. So you're turning a shlishi into a sheni, you were bumping it up one level. That's the chiddush of Akiva. We already know that chiddush from Chanina. Michael Mashlan, what is he coming to tell us? Shlishi, mutal asesh sheni, that you can turn a shlishi into a sheni. Hainu. This is an exact repetition of Chanina's halacha. Hoyser Rabbi Akiva, come and we just want to add something. He's not adding anything. It's the same exact halacha. A shlishi being turned into a sheni. Rabbi Yehuda. Apparently we have to rearrange things. We're speaking about a lamp which was no ordinary lamp. It was made from mateches. It's a metal lamp. The Rachmana Omar, the Torah says, B'chalal cherev. The pasuk speaking about becoming tamei through touching a mace, a person who was killed through a cherev, a sword. Now, why does the pasuk speak about the sword? We use vadrasha to indicate that metal utensils are unique in the sense that whenever they're involved with tumas mace, you know what happens to them? They attain tumah which is identical to the original source of tumah. So if you have this sword which touches the mace, just as the mace is the highest form of tumah, aviyah vaysa tumah, likewise the metal utensil will acquire that very stringent form of tumah. Or if the metal utensil touches an avatumah, it in itself will also become an avatumah. So B'chalal cherev teaches you that cherev hareu kechalal. The sword is equated with the chalal, the person who was killed. So whatever status, whatever tumah the chalal has, the cherev attains the same. Now if we're speaking about a ner shel mateches, so this lamp is a metal utensil, and it came into contact with what? An avatumah. It was a ner shenitma b'tmei meis. A tmei meis means somebody that touched the mace, so he's an avatumah. The ner touched an avatumah. So since it's a metal utensil, he acquires the same tumah as the thing that he touched. So he in itself is also an avatumah. V'havile avatumah. Now the ner in itself is now an avatumah as well. Now what are you doing when you take this oil, the shemen truma, which is a shlishi, and place it into the ner, which is an avatumah? What happens is that the shemen now becomes a rishon tumah. When you touch an av, you become a rishon. So you bumped it up 2 levels. Rabbi Chanina ben Tzkana Kahana was speaking about bumping it up 1 level, right? Taking a shlishi and turning it into a sheni. Rabbi Akiva adds even a greater chiddush. You can take the shemen shel truma, which is a shlishi, and upgrade it 2 steps. Have it become a rishon l'tumah. Bump it up 2 levels. That's a chiddush. That's hoyser Rabbi Akiva. Because sava shlishi mutal asesh rishon. He holds that you can take a shlishi and turn it into a rishon. So that's the chiddush of Rabbi Akiva. Says the Gemara, how do you know? Umay doichid Rabbi Yehuda. What compelled Rabbi Yehuda la'oikmei b'ner shel mateches to describe the scenario as pertaining to a ner shel mateches? Right? That's how we established the Mishnah. Rabbi Akiva is speaking about this metal utensil which attained a very high level of tumah. It's a avatumah. And now, when you put the oil in there, you're actually upgrading the oil to a very high level of tumah. You're taking a shlishi, turning into a rishon. How do you know that that is what we're discussing? Why can't he establish it as speaking about a standard lamp, a earthenware lamp, which doesn't have this unique feature of turning into the same tumah as the original tumah? It's a ner shel cheres, a standard lamp. It came into contact with an avatumah, which resulted in the lamp becoming a rishon l'tumah. It doesn't have the same tumah as the av. It's a rishon l'tumah, 1 step lower. And Rabbi Akiva is coming to tell us that you can take the shemen shel truma, which touched the tvul yom is a sheni, now the shemen is a shlishi, taking that shlishi, and you're allowed to place it in the ner, which is a rishon. Although you're bumping up the tumah of the shemen, you're upgrading it from a shlishi to a sheni. Now the question was, umay hoisif. So what was Rabbi Akiva trying to add? What was he adding to Rabbi Chanina's chiddush? They're both speaking about the same identical halacha, about transforming a shlishi and upgrading into a sheni. What's the hoisif Rabbi Akiva on top of Rabbi Chanina? Says the Gemara, there's a difference. You know why? There's something called tamei and something called pasal. What is the difference? Pasal means that it in itself is disqualified. For instance, this shemen is a shlishi. So when it comes to truma, the shlishi is the last stage of tumah. It cannot transfer tumah further down the line. So it's the dead end. It's the last stop. It's pasal, but it's not tamei. Tamei means that it has the ability to transfer tumah even further, beyond itself. That's a higher status, a higher classification. You know, when you learn something and you attain true clarity, then you have the ability to actually transfer it further, to teach somebody else what you've learned. But if you don't have the ability to do so, fine, you learned it, but apparently you don't have the same clarity. You haven't really acquired it to the same extent. So when we speak about tamei, that indicates that it is so tamei, it acquired the tumah to such a great extent, it so internalized the tumah that it could actually transfer that tumah further down the line. Whereas pasal simply means, yeah, by becoming tamei, it becomes disqualified. The tumah can no longer be eaten, etc., but it can't transfer that tumah further. It doesn't have such a high level of tumah that it can actually transfer tumah further. So that's going to be the answer to the kasha. Rabbi Akiva is coming to teach us a greater chiddush than Chanina. Umay hoisiv. What did he add? He added like this: the ilu hasam tamei v'tamei. Because in Rabbi Chanina's halacha, what are we doing? We're taking basar of kodesh, which is a shlishi l'tumah, a low-level tumah. But despite the fact that it's a lenient tumah, it is still tamei, because by kachim, mentioned earlier, it goes up until revi. So this basar, which is a shlishi l'tumah, is called tamei because if it touches another piece of kachim, it makes it pasal, so it transfers the tumah further. So it's called a tamei. So you took that shlishi, which is a tamei, and you upgraded it, turned it into a sheni, which is also tamei. So you took tamei and changed it to another form of tamei. So perhaps the contrast is not so great between one and the other. Yeah, you upgraded a bit, but it was tamei and it is tamei. So perhaps that would be allowed. But perhaps in the case of Rabbi Akiva, vilu hacha, however, over here by Rabbi Akiva, what are you doing? You're transforming to a much greater extent. Pasal v'tamei. You're taking the shemen truma, which was a shlishi l'tumah, which is merely called pasal, because it can't transfer tumah further. It stops right there. So it's only pasal. It's only disqualified. And what are you doing with it? You're upgrading it, turning it into a sheni, which is tamei. A sheni can make something else tamei. So you've reclassified the item from pasal to tamei. Perhaps that's a significant, severe upgrade. You've taken a low-level tumah and changed it to a much more severe type of tumah. You've changed a pasal to a tamei. So perhaps that's Rabbi Akiva's chiddush. So again, the kasha is, how does Rabbi Yehuda know that we're speaking about this metal utensil, which becomes a avatuma, and now when the oil, which is a shlishi, comes into it, that oil turns from a shlishi to a rishon by coming into contact with the ner, which is avatuma, and you've bumped it up 2 levels, and that was Rabbi Akiva's chiddush on top of Rabbi Chanina. Perhaps Rabbi Akiva, just as Rabbi Chanina, is speaking merely about upgrading it one level, bumping it up 1 level, taking a oil, which is a shlishi, and putting it into a ner shel cheres, which is merely a rishon. By doing so, he transformed the oil from shlishi to sheni. He bumped it up 1 level. And what is the additional chiddush by Rabbi Akiva? Because in this case, you've changed a pasal, shlishi letruma, which is just pasal, into a sheni, which is tamei. And that's the chiddush. You can do that as well. Says the Gemara Amar Rava. You know why Rabbi Yehuda presented it differently? Masnisin kashisi. Because the wording of the Mishnah seemed a bit difficult to Rabbi Yehuda. My area detani ner shenitma b'tmei meis. Why did the Mishnah have to describe the ner as though it was tamei with tmei meis? Describing the exact type of tumas meis. Why get into those details? The Mishnah could have simply said the oil was put into a ner that became tamei, and we all know that a kli could only become tamei from avatuma. We know that as a fact. Why do you have to describe it? Why do you have to explicitly say Tamei Meis. There are other forms of Avatoma. There's Sheretz, there's Nevela. Why was that necessary? Nisni Shenitma B'Sheretz. Why doesn't it just simply say that became Tamei, Sheretz, whatever? Why do you have to get into details? There's a Gis that actually takes out the word B'Sheretz. Rashi also seems to learn that way. The Mishnah should have just said, the Ner became Tamei. We know, how does a Ner, how does a Kli become Tamei? From Avatuma. That's the key. Ella, Ezu Davar, Shechaluka Tumas. You know why the Mishnah had to specifically refer to Tumas Meis? Because we're speaking about something, some type of material, some type of utensil, which is unique. That when it interacts with Tumas Meis, it attains the source Tuma. Just as Rabbi Yehuda described. Ela Ezu Davar Shechaluka Tumas. What type of thing do we differentiate between Tumas Meis l'Sheretz? Is there a difference whether he's interacting with Tumas Meis or Tumas Sheretz? Havi Oimer ze Matechas. That's certainly referring to Matechas. So when the Mishnah specified that we're dealing with a Ner that attained its Tumah through Meis, by coming into contact with the Tmei Meis, why speak about Meis? Apparently, we're speaking about a unique scenario. We're dealing with a very specific material here, Matechas, which when it interacts with Tumas Meis in specific, so you have both elements, the type of material, the Matechas, with this specific type of Tumas Meis, then the Matechas attains the source Tumah. He gets the Tumas Meis. If he comes into contact with the Meis, he himself becomes an Avatuma. So apparently that is the context of our Mishnah. The Ner was Matechas. It touched an Avatuma. It in itself became an Avatuma as well. By putting that Shemen, which is merely a Shlishi, the Shemen Shal Tumah, which is just a Shlishi Tumah, into that Ner Shal Matechas, which was an Avatuma now. You've upgraded the Shemen from a Shlishi to a Rishon, and that is Rabbi Akiva's Chiddush. So Rabbi Chanina's Chiddush was, you take a Shlishi, turn it into a Sheni. Rabbi Akiva added, you can even take a Shlishi and turn it into a Rishon. Amar Rabbi, Shema Mina. It's pretty clear, because Savar Rabbi Akiva holds, Tumas Mashkin L'Tamei Acherim Mid'Oraisa, that the fact that Mashkin, liquids, have the ability to transfer Tumah to other things, that is a Din HaTorah. We're going to discuss it later on in the parak. Some hold it's only the Rabbanan. Apparently Rabbi Akiva holds otherwise. It's been HaTorah. How does Rabbi know this? The Isa Gedayach the Rabbanan, because if Rabbi Akiva would hold that Mashkin can only pass on Tumah midrabanan, but not min HaTorah. So how do we understand our Mishnah? Rabbi Akiva is coming to add. He's saying you can take this Shemen Shel Truma, it's a Mashkin, a liquid, transform it from a Shlishi into a Rishon. That's a tremendous chiddush that you can do that, even though you're upgrading the Tumah. It's not much of an upgrade. You haven't really accomplished much. Nichti, let's take a look. Hi Ner, this Ner Shel Matechas, which is a Avatuma, Maika Mahanyo Lahai Shemen. In what way is it adversely affecting the oil? Ilav Suli Gufe, if we're speaking about disqualifying the Shemen itself, making it unsuitable for consumption, for drinking, because it became Tamei, it turned from a Shlishi to a Rishon. Whoa, such a high Tumah. You haven't really done anything. How possible the let's keep in mind, this oil was very possible to begin with. When it was a Shlishi, there was no halachic ramification to the fact that it turned into a Rishon. So before it was a Shlishi, now it's a Rishon. There's no Afkamina here. It was possible, now it's still in itself possible. How possible the It was always possible. Apparently, says Rabbi Akiva holds that when this Shemen, which was originally merely a Shlishi, has now turned into a Rishon and became Tamei, it now has the ability to transfer Tumah to something else, and that's called a true upgrade. You've now changed, you've reclassified, you've changed the status of the Shemen. You've changed it from a puzzle to a Tamei who can be Metamei something Mid'Oraisa. And that's the Chiddush of Rabbi Akiva. You may do so. So this is a right that Rabbi Akiva holds that Mashkin can be Metamei Mid'Oraisa. How do you know? Mimai. How do you know that? Dilma L'Tamei Acher Midrabanan. Maybe you know what the change was, the upgrade was, in the context of Midrabanan. So you've taken the Shemen Shel Truma, which was merely a Shlishi, you're putting it into the lap and turning the Shemen into a Rishon, and now it can be B'tami others Midrabanan. So all of Torah can, but perhaps the upgrade was within the framework of the Midrabanan. That's also an upgrade. And that's a Rekiva's Chiddush. You may do so, despite the fact that you're upgrading the status of the Tumah Midrabanan. Says the Gemara, but if that's the case, even the Rabbanon, if we're only speaking about the Rabbanon, then why speak about a Ner Shomat Teches, which was an Avat Tumah, and when you put the oil in there, the oil becomes a Rishon. You don't need that additional detail. My area of Avat Tumah, why speak about Avat Tumah? I feel a Rishon V'Sheni Nami, Chilahavi. You know, even if Mashkin comes into contact with a Rishon Tumah, a lower, much lower form of Tumah than an Av, or a Sheni Tumah, even then, Chilahavi. You know what happens to the Mashkin? Midrabanan, it attains the status of a Rishon Tumah. It's a Chomer Midrabanan. The Snan, as we went to the Mishnah, called a Paisel Es HaTruma. Anything that has the ability to make Truma possible, meaning it's a Sheni Tumah. So when it touches Truma, it becomes possible. So any Sheni Tumah, Metala Mashkin Liyitzchila. What happens if it comes into contact with Mashkin? The Mashkin now turn into a Tchila Rishon Tumah. Rashi explains the background of the Gzeira. The Chacham were concerned because Mashkin are really overly susceptible to Tumah. Unlike food, which first has to get wet and Hushal Kavat Tumah, Mashkin just becomes Tumah outright. It doesn't have to have the Hechsher. So Chacham made a Chumrah when it comes to Mashkin to ensure that the Kahanim will really watch over their Mashkin. And therefore they said, any Mashkin that comes into contact with any Tumah, even a Rishon or a Sheni, that Mashkin now leapfrogged, becomes a Rishon Tumah. Chutz mit Tful Yom, this doesn't apply to a Tful Yom. So Tful Yom is this fellow who is a Sheni Tumah, awaiting the hair of Shemesh. So although he's also a Sheni, but by him this halacha doesn't apply. If he touches Mashkin, it does not become a Rishon. Rashi explains because we're speaking about it in Tumah Daraisa, and the Chum didn't have to create safeguards around that Tumah. Okay, but any other Tumah, even a Rishon or a Sheni, which touches Mashkin, that Mashkin turns into a Rishon. So, getting back to Rav Kiva, if you're going to suggest that, speaking in the context of Tumas Midrabanan, that he upgraded the Shemesh Shel Truma from a Shlishi to a Rishon Midrabanan, so why does he have to be inserted into a Ner Shomat Teches, which, as we explained earlier, had a high level Tumah, Avat Tumah, and that in turn makes the Shemen a Rishon. You don't need that. You don't need it to that extent. Even if the Shemen merely touches a Rishon or a Sheni, Midrabanan, we're speaking about Midrabanan, even then it will become a Rishon. Elishma, no Daraisi, apparently Rabbi Kiva is speaking from the context of the Daraisa. That we want to take this oil of Shemen Shel Truma and bump it up, make it a Rishon min ha-Torah. And that's a Chiddush Rabbi Kiva. You can even take a Shlish L'Tumah and turn it into a Rishon. Now, that Rishon will have the ability to be Matame other things. Because Mashkin can be Matame Daraisa. So although you've now upgraded it to the extent that it's a Rishon L'Tumah and has the ability to be a Rishon min ha-Torah, to be Matame others as well, you can still do that. And that's Rabbi Kiva's Chiddush, because, as we explained, since it was already tummy somewhat, there's no concern, you don't have to watch over it, you can allow it to become tummy, even to acquire a more stringent form of tumah. Okay, so in summary, we learned two things in the Mishnah. Rabbi Chanina tells us you can take a shlishi and turn it into a sheni. Rabbi Kiva adds, you can even take a shlishi and turn it into a rishon. Continues the Gemara. From them we learned that on Erev Pesach you can take the truma, which is chametz, truma tahira, burn it together with truma tmeya. We're speaking that it's already the 6th hour, so midrabanan you can't have enough from it, and we're not concerned with being metame the truma tahira. It's okay, you can burn it together with the tmeya. Although you're upgrading it, you're making something tar into tummy, it's okay. Where do we know this from? Midivreihem. From the words of Rav Chanina, perhaps Rabbi Kiva, we're not sure. We're trying to analyze what was Rabbi Meir referring to. But the Vrei Deman, whose words? Was it from Chanina's halacha that you can take the shlishi, the basar shlishi, and turn it to a sheni? How could you compare two things? Midami, you can't compare. Hasam tami v'tami. Over there, you're taking the basar, which is a shlishi. So sure, you're upgrading it to a sheni, but it was tamei v'tamei. Initially it was tamei, now it's tamei. So you're really changing the level of tumah. Hacha tar v'tamei. In contrast to by the truma, you're taking something which was tar, making it tamei. How can you do that? You can't compare two things. Okay, so apparently Rabbi Meir was deriving from Rabbi Kiva, who says you can take the shemen shel truma, which is merely puzzle, it's a shlishi, and go ahead and be matamet, turn it into a rishon. And likewise over here with the truma. Says more again, how do you compare two things? Midami, hasam puzzle with tamei. You take something which was already puzzle, a shlishi l'tumah, it was puzzle. Fine, you're turning it into a rishon, but it was already puzzle. Puzzle v'tamei. You're taking puzzle and you're turning it into tamei. Hacha tar v'tamei. Here dealing with a different equation. You're taking something which is tar and you want to make it tamei by allowing it to come into contact with the truma tamei. How can you compare the two things? It says more name, but perhaps we'll have to speculate like this. Because Savar Rabbi Meir held that even in the case of Rabbi Chanina, the basar, which is now being upgraded, was really tar min atur. The Mishnah tells us you can take a basar which was nitma bivladatuma. Vladatuma is the rishon, or as the Gemara tells us, we're speaking about vladatuma. So the basar touched a sheni, and you could allow it to come into contact with another piece of basar which was nitma ba'avatum, making that basar a rishon. So in effect, you're taking the first piece of basar, which was a shlishi, and transforming it into a sheni by allowing it to come into contact with the rishon. So you're turning a shlishi into a sheni. Perhaps, when the Mishnah speaks about the first basar having already come into contact with a vlad, it was a vlad d'Rabbanan, dealing with a tumah d'Rabbanan. So min haTorah, that piece of meat was never really tamei. It was only tamei mid-Rabbanan. And Chanina tells us that since it was already tamei d'Rabbanan, you could allow it to come into contact with the more stringent form of tumah, with the second piece of meat, which is a rishon, and allow it to become tamei, and turn into a sheni by touching that rishon. Of course, we're speaking about adding a tumah d'Rabbanan, because if you recall, we mentioned earlier that oichel can't be matamei oichel. So what's going to happen is that the first piece of meat will acquire a higher level of tumah d'Rabbanan. So that's the equation. Chanina is speaking about taking something which was tar min haTorah, because it only came into contact with a vlad which was tamei d'Rabbanan, not min haTorah. Rashi says, speaking that a mashkin that was tamei touched the kli, and the kli now was tamei midrabanan, and now the kli touched something else and made that other thing tamei. So we have a sheni l'tumah midrabanan. Now Torah, that thing is completely tar, and now this basar touched that sheni midrabanan. So it's tamei midrabanan, and Chanina tells us you can take this piece of meat which is a shlishi midrabanan, tar min haTorah, shlishi midrabanan, and allow it to get upgraded by touching the next piece of meat, which is a rishon, which will in turn make this first piece of meat a sheni l'tumah d'Rabbanan, because meat is only tam meat d'Rabbanan. So perhaps that's Rabbi Meir's interpretation of Chanina. And likewise in our case, of the truma, it's a good comparison. We're taking chametz on Erev Pesach, we're speaking during the 6th hour, it's already asam d'Rabbanan. So it's like the tumah d'Rabbanan, it's already asam d'Rabbanan, and we allow it to be burnt together with the truma tmeya, and by coming into contact with that, it will acquire tumah d'Rabbanan, because it's oichel was oichel. So it's exactly the same contact, the same equation. Perhaps that's the pshat of Rabbi Meir. Let's see inside. 3 lines from the bottom. Nema kosav Rabbi Meir, shall we suggest that Rabbi Meir interpreted that masnisan b'avatuma d'oraisa, when we speak about the more stringent, the more chomer, the more tamei piece of meat, the second piece of meat, which came into contact with an avatuma. The avatuma was d'oraisa, so it was really tamei not Torah, but the initial first piece of meat, which came into contact with the vlad, was only tamei d'Rabbanan, vlad tumah d'Rabbanan, because it touched the vlad tumah d'Rabbanan. The d'oraisa tar ma'alim, and Torah, it's certainly completely tar. So that initial basar, when Torah was really tar, but d'Rabbanan he was tamei, and we allowed that basar, which was tamei d'Rabbanan, to come into contact with the more stringent form of tumah, by doing so elevating its tumah one level higher, tumah d'Rabbanan, of course, because it's oichel and oichel. And likewise in the case of the truma, since it's the 6th hour, It's Asr Midrabanan. You can take this Truma, which is Asr, and have it come into contact with Truma Tmeya, and which will result in giving this Truma Torah a Truma Midrabanan. So the question fits perfectly well. Umayim Devreim, what does Rameya mean that I learned this from their words? Is that the Pshat? Amar Shlokish, Mishum Bar Kapar, no. You don't have to say that. You don't have to resort to that interpretation. That our mission is speaking about Tumah D'Rabbanan, no. Mas Nisn Bava Tumah D'Oraisa, Uvlada Tumah D'Oraisa. Straightforward. Rav Chanina is speaking about a piece of basar which became Tameh via a Vlada Tumah D'Oraisa, so it's Tameh Minator. Then we allow it to be burnt with another piece of meat, which is also Tameh Minator because it touched a Avatumah D'Oraisa, and we allow the upgrade to take place. If that's the case, what's the shak? What's the comparison to Truma Torah? Sure, you can take a piece of basar which was already somewhat tummy and allow it to be upgraded because it was tummy and it is tummy. How could you compare it to the Truma Torah? You can take Torah, Truma, and make it tummy. What's the connection? What does Rameya mean when he says that from their words I derive this halacha as well? It's unrelated to Rabbi Chanina or Rabbi Kiva. Actually, it's Medivrei, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shur. It's from their words, which Be'ez Hashem will learn the upcoming Gemara, who hold that you can go ahead and even Truma Torah, which is unsuitable for consumption, go ahead and allow it to become tummy, and that is the source of Rabbi Meir. Okay, time for a brief chazara of today's daf. We learned that although generally a person is meant to be shomer his truma, his kashim, and prevent it from coming tummy, however, if it's already inedible, it's somewhat tummy, even if it attained a low level tumah, we can go ahead and allow it to become tummy and attain a higher degree of tumah. Rabbi Chanina Skan told us that basar kodesh, which is a shlish l'tumah, can be allowed to upgrade it to a shein l'tumah. How do we do that? By taking the basar kodesh, which is a shlishi, and having it come into contact with basar kodesh, which is a rishon, which will result in the first piece of meat being upgraded to a sheni. Gemara tells us that we're speaking about a tumah d'Rabbanan because the oichel will only be matami oichel midrabbanan. Rabbi Kiva adds to that and he says, you can take even a shlishi and turn it into a rishon, such as in the shemen truma, which is a shlishi l'tumah, it's puzzle, and they wouldn't hesitate to place it in a ner mateches, this metal utensil, which had a very high level of tumah. It was an avatuma. By placing the shemen there, what are you doing? You're taking a shlishi and transforming it into rishon. That's okay. And the Gemara concluded that apparently Rabbi Kiva holds that the ability of mashke to be matame something else is min haTorah, and that explains how Rabbi Kiva was actually adding very much to Rabbi Chanina. You can take the mashke, the shemen shel truma, which is shlishi, and turn it into rishon, and now it even has the ability to be matame something else. So it was reclassified. It became a much higher madrega of tumah, a rishon that can be matame. Even this can be done. Rameya tells us that we derive midivrei, that when it comes to Erev Pesach, you can take Truma Torah and burn it with Tmeya. The Gemara now is going to analyze what is the source of our Meir's Chiddush.